taking its time.
It says meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
All right, beautiful. So hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inspire Knowledge, Creative and Spiritual Symposium. And for our final interview, we have the beautiful Virginia Walters, and she's going to talk about tarot and inquiry. How are you, Virginia?
I'm good, thanks, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So
thank you so much for your kind words. Yeah.
So can you tell me what is the difference between the major and minor arcana?
So in the tarot cards, in the deck, there are 78 cards. Now, 22 of them are what we call the major arcanas. And the major arcanas are basically life's milestones. So we all go through this life facing stages of development, initiation, and we're never the same. Like the journey through the experience transforms us. For example, you might find the Empress card, and that is a card that talks about motherhood or having children. So obviously, that stage of becoming a parent is life-changing, life-altering. You might also see the Fool card, and the Fool card is about the first step on a journey through life, and it's that stage where we don't really know anything. We've just got to take that risk and step out and see what happens. So the major arcanas really talk about those stages in our life that we go through, that everybody goes through. And the difference between the major and the minor arcana is the minor arcana really fill in the gaps. And also, it's the smaller things. It's the decisions that we make along the way. It's the people that we encounter. They're sort of like the words that add to the story, but all those little nuances that happen along the way that fill in the gaps to the bigger story. And where we would see in a reading a major arcana and the minor arcanas around them, we would sort of know, well, where is this person at with this stage of development? Are they approaching it? Have they transitioned through it? Is it about somebody else around them? And the minor arcana help us along with those sorts of things.
Okay, it's very interesting. What how would the tarot be used in self-development?
So self-development, and interestingly, tarot was around. It was one of the first forms of psychology, and a lot of different cultures use it in one form or another, and it was a tool of inquiry. So we would look at the tarot card, and we would sort of look at the personality and the stages of development of the personality. For example, pages carry thoughts, and our thoughts are usually where things begin, isn't it? Like we'll have a thought, and then we will move, and that's the pages. So then we would move into the Knight, and the Knights are more about actions or putting those thoughts into action. So just using the pages and the Knights as an example, when we're looking at personality types or where people are, we would know where they are. For example, with career, are we thinking about a career, or are we thinking about doing something? You can also see it with stages of personality as well. Is a person thinking about taking action, or are they actually going to do it? And those types of cards will show where a person is developmentally. So if we also look at, the queens and the kings, and they're all, like they say queens and kings, but they are gender neutral. They're just cards that show where we're at with our development. So queens are more about our internal world or how we are. They're more in the doing or how we show up. For example, a Queen of Pentacles, she's a person who's highly nurturing. So you would see this if you were looking at how a person is within their family environment, and somebody came up as a Queen of Pentacles, then you would automatically know that this person, creates a very comfortable home, a very stable home life, very grounded. Whereas a Queen of Cups, for example, will come up and show that they are emotionally intelligent, that they're a good person to talk to, that they're good at figuring out emotions and holding space for people. So we would look at those, just using those two cards as an example, and where a queen sits, that you would know, well, this is how a person conducts themselves within their inner world. Whereas we look at kings are sort of masters. They've done it, or they're doing it. It's about accomplishing and about mastery. So it would show up where you are with your career, where you are in the material world, how you carry yourself on a surface level. So when we look at personality types and we look at, well, am I dealing with a page? Am I dealing with a knight? Am I dealing with a queen or a king? It would often soften your approach, or know better how to approach a situation. And even if you're inquiring for self, how do I feel about this? I'm thinking of studying. Do I have that in me? And you'd come out with this page that's carrying the thought. The night, well, how would I put this into action? How far away, which campus do I want to study at? How is this practically going to happen? Then we would look at the queen aspect of ourselves. Well, what part of my inner world do I need that needs to sort of to work with that part of my inner world in order to have this happen? And then completing that study, well, that would be the king, wouldn't it? Because I've mastered that, I've accomplished that. So it's sort of, sometimes the cards can be used to reaffirm and to work out what's going on in our inner worlds. And although they're used for divination and for readings and that sort of thing, you don't have to use them in that way. You can just use them for self-inquiry.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool. So, how would personality type show up in a tarot reading?
Well, the other thing, I find this very interesting, because if we have a look, and remember, these cards were created hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and but they're still applicable today, because if you look at this Myers-Briggs, have you heard of the Myers-Briggs personality test?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I did a little bit of research on that as well, because they do, and that's often a question that comes up with people when they come for a reading. They'll say, how is this person, or how is this person performing, or something like that, or even about themselves. They're conflicted and they don't know what to do. So, for example, if we're going to apply the Myers-Briggs personality types, and there are 16 of those, several of them show up as tarot cards as well. Because if we look at the pages are youthful and they're curious. They're enthusiastic, and they have desires to learn. And so they often match the personality type of the INTP or the ENFP. So if you want to assign personality types to them, you could do it that way. Also with astrology, because I guess back in the day when they were creating these tarot cards, they didn't have Myers-Briggs to refer to, but they would assign astrological signs to the cards. So, for example, the air signs are the swords. So if the swords come up in a reading, well, we know we're dealing with an air sign, and an air sign is a Gemini, a Libra, or an Aquarius, just using that as an example. So I guess it all depends on where you put your mind when you start to do a reading. I feel it's formulating the question and then putting that question into the cards, and then you will read it. Am I reading a personality type through a Myers-Briggs? Am I reading a personality type through an astrology? Am I reading a personality type through a stage of development in their life? Am I reading a personality through what they've been through? And that's where we would see that major arcana come up again. For example, you might see the magician, and the magician is about reinventing oneself. Well, what then, depending on those cards around it, well, what's caused this need for a reinvention? Has this person suffered loss? Has this person gone through a divorce? Is this person trying to pick themselves up following a life event? And then we would, see that around them. So, if we have another card that comes through and it shows astrology sign. Well, it could be that person or somebody around them, depending on what other minor arcana showed up. Is this person come along with a message of encouragement? Is this person coming along with an opportunity? Is this person coming along to offer support? So it's so interesting, and often how the people around us also help shape who we are, when it comes to trust issues and all that sort of stuff. So it's a multi-layered and complex thing, and that's what I love about tarot. Like, you can never ever get bored with it, and you can have so much fun with it as well, just for self and inquiring for self as well. So it's not something I would say to be fearful of, and it's not something that is ever set in stone. We're always a decision away from our, from what we would do in life. They're essentially a tool for empowerment and a tool to bring the subconscious into consciousness and to help us grow and evolve, to be, the best that we can be, hopefully, God willing. So that's sort of how I would see it, and that's how I would look at the personality types. Even myself, I've seen, I've often come up as one card, and then, for example, I always came up as a Queen of Pentacles. So I was that Queen of Pentacles, but it was interesting. Following the death of my mother, I started to come up as the Empress. So I knew that moment in life really defined who I was, and then it started to reflect in the cards that I would read, and I thought, who's this Empress? And then I realized, oh, it's you, Virginia. You've stepped into another level of who you are, and we all carry those aspects within us. We're not all set in stone, are we? So we often the card is an encouragement. You might see, a wands come up, and wands are about taking action. So this might be encouraging you to step forward with a new idea, or encouraging you to step forward and to take a risk, or encouraging you to step forward and develop a different aspect of yourself. So, I find them so interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing the different avenues you're able to decipher from a tarot reading. It seems really complex what you're talking about.
But it's also quite simple. The major thing would be defining the question.
Yes.
And the question that you put forward would determine how you read the cards.
Yes. So you're going to give a demonstration on how to ask the tarot for advice?
Yes, well, let's have a look. So throw a question at me and, so we often have the jumpers. We call the jumpers. Some people read the jumpers. With me, I see them as a card of influence. And for me, I look at it and go, okay, so this is a card of a consideration. We're going to consider these things, but I will continue to shuffle. So what we have got a major arcana, and we've got a minor arcana. Yes. So we've got temperance, which is all about balancing spiritual and material wealth. But we've also got this 5 of Swords. Now, the 5 of Swords it's sort of like, it's kind of like a break, or it's like there's no winners or losers. We've just decided to take a break, and we're going else. Like it would be, we're agreeing to disagree. Let's agree to disagree. We've all had situations like that in our life. And sometimes finding the balance is picking your battles and knowing what is important and what isn't important. So that's where, sorry, my background is blurring a bit. So that, with those 2 cards being jumpers, I would say, well, that's something to consider here. Well, where in life have I needed to sort of agree to disagree and respectfully go my own way? So I would use that as so maybe the cards are posing the question. Now let's see what advice the card is going to give us about this. So I'm wondering how many cards I should draw. So that's where our intuition would step into play. Yes. And we would have a look with the first card, and let's have a look what the first card has to say here. And the first card is about, well, how about it's the 4 of Cups. Well, how about you just kind of take a little bit of a break and contemplate on this? Sometimes it's about stepping back into meditation and just kind of, working through things, allowing things to settle down and waiting for those emotions to calm down so we can respond rather than react.
Yes.
So that's where, and if we have a look at that first card with the Temperance, that's calling us into balance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like where there's been an opportunity come up where we could have gotten into a really heated argument here. We've just kind of said, hey, let's slow down, let's cool this, let's both take a step away and let me work through this before I respond. So often we look at as well, this is what I like to do, and this is what my teacher taught me, Christine Rose. She was a lovely teacher of mine. So she always looked at the back of the card, and the back of the card also carries influence. So see how we've got the Pentacles here, and who have we got? We've got the Six of Pentacles. So this is a card of giving and receiving, but see how one person is helping and another person is receiving. So
Yes.
it's a card of charity, but sometimes, have you ever felt like in a relationship where you're always you feel like you're approaching and you're always the one having to make the first offer or the peace offer, or you feel like you're getting breadcrumbed by somebody, because see how, there's somebody with a great deal of wealth who's only sort of putting forth a couple of coins here. So, oh, sorry, I'm holding up the wrong card.
Yeah, that one.
This one, the Six of Coins. So it's also a contemplation. Well, look, you've got to look at, well, who's going to take the first step here? Somebody has to be the humble one, and somebody has to be the grateful one. And somebody has to, be the better person and step forward and see where the need is and step up to the party. So it's also looking at, is this worth it? Is this worth it? Do I want to even risk that? Or am I going to be the person that steps forward and makes the offering to help or sort it out? Or am I the person that's going to sit back and wait for the other person to step forward? And it also, when we're looking at patterns in our life, well, if you've always been the peacemaker and you find that you're always sort of getting, like on the receiving end of, like that's sort of, you're falling into that role, and where people feel that they're exploited, or they're, it's just expected that they will be the peacemaker. Well, maybe it's time to step back and let that other person develop that aspect of themselves and allow that other person to be the peacemaker and you to be the person that responds to that. So it's also challenges your dynamics in relationships. It depends on how you look at it. But the bottom card is always a card of influence. So when I look at the card of advice, which is that Four of Cups, it's sort of suggesting, well, how about you sit back and you wait? How about you sit back and you wait for the person to come in and sort of be the peacemaker, or the one to make the first step, or the one to sort of help a little bit that way. So that's how I would do that little reading there. Just as an example, it's not about any particular situation. It's just demonstrating how one would use the cards for that, and see how it's caused me to stop and reflect on myself and reflect on my patterns. Well, how do I normally show up for people? And, am I a person that does like to fight, or will I, do I have enough balance within myself to stop and pause and just wait for things to sort of clear up? And then do I want to step back in and sort of be the peacemaker, or is it up to the other person to be the peacemaker, or do we just decide to call it quits? You know, and that's possibly where you may, working through that. And then I might ask for guidance. So if I ask for my spirit guides, my angels, my helpers, whoever that may be, to give me a little bit of advice on this situation, and they're like the Chariot. So that's another major arcana, and the Chariot is about making a decision. I'm at a turning point. Do I go this way or do I go that way? And it's like, well, do I want to keep repeating these patterns, or am I okay with this? Is this just the way I am and I'm happy with that, or is this a type of situation that often leads to burnout? And it's like, well, we're moving on from that now. I used to operate like that when I was in my 30s. Now I'm in my 50s. I don't operate like that anymore. I just cut my losses and move on. So it sort of looks at those, just using that as the example, so that would say, well, make a decision here. Make a decision. How do you want to show up and how do you want to be? And then that would as well, when we look at that Four of Cups, well, it's calling you into that place of, you know, meditation and contemplation, and then that balance with the temperance. Well, how do we go about that? So see how all the cards play in together and they all interact together, and they cause you to think and to work through your thoughts on things, and therefore approach a situation with mindfulness rather than just blindly going through life. So I find them immensely helpful and insightful, and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Especially you've got a few girlfriends together. Cup of tea party, let's pull out the tarot, let's have some fun. And you can, it's amazing. You can work through so much in just half an hour. You come away with a whole new perspective on life. So yeah, I'm a fan of tarot.
Yeah, awesome. So what are you offering today for the Lucky Door prize?
Well, I'm offering a free reading. So it'll be a 30-minute reading via Zoom, and I will do a reading for you. So just whoever is the lucky winner, just think about what it is that they would like to know with the tarot, and we can do a reading where I can use the tarot. I could use my psychic, my clairvoyant, and my mediumship ability to bring forth messages. Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
thank you.
That concludes the interview for Virginia today. So I will put this in the group, and anyone who has any questions for Virginia is welcome to comment below the video. All right.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Have a lovely day, everyone.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye.